Hi guys, and welcome to another 7-minute lecture. We're doing something different today. Instead of focusing on a topic or a theme, we're zeroing in on a personality. Someone who's played a noticeable role in the way international politics has shaped up in the last 20 years. The guy who was once called, and who really was, the world's most wanted man, Osama bin Laden. So, unless you live in a cave like bin Laden did, you would obviously already know who he was. He was a terrorist known around the world for being the leader of Al Qaeda and for masterminding the 9/11 attacks. But even though everybody knew him after 9/11, what exactly was he before that? What was his history leading up to 9/11? That is our question today. He was born in 1957 to an incredibly rich family, a billionaire family. His father was a big tycoon in the construction industry with close ties to the Saudi Arabian royal family. His early days are not that important. Where our story has to start is from 1979 onwards, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. He was one of the many Muslim youth who came from all over the world to fight the Soviets. At that time, the CIA was conducting what was known as Operation Cyclone. The operation's aim was very simple: to train all these young people coming in to fight, later known as the Mujahideen or Holy Warriors, to wage war against the Soviets. It was primarily done with Saudi money and Pakistani expertise, right? So the ISI, which is sort of the CIA of Pakistan, played a huge role in this. So always keep that in mind. A big part of the guy's appeal was that he was a billionaire who left all of that to go live in a cave and wage war, a war he considered holy. Right until the very end, he constantly played that card to make himself look like a shining beacon to his followers. The Afghan resistance continued for a decade, and it was only in 1989 that the Soviets finally gave up and left. So that was the first victory that he's a part of. And with the Soviets gone, he returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero. And here is where many of his problems started. When he was back in Saudi Arabia, he started growing increasingly angry that the Americans, the infidels, had control of the Holy Lands, because both Mecca and Medina, the two holiest places in Islam, both had American troops right at their doorstep. And when he appealed to the Saudi monarchy to remove the Americans from the Holy Lands, the Royal House of Saud asked him to shut up and mind his own business. They said, look, there's this guy called Saddam Hussein right next door, and we're a lot more scared of him than we are of you. And the Americans are the only ones who can protect us from him. Bin Laden kept telling them that they don't need the Americans to protect them against Saddam, but they refused. And because of these tensions, he publicly denounced the monarchy, declared jihad against the Saudi royal family, and is then chased out of the country in 1991. So that's the second thing to keep in mind. The first people he officially declares jihad against are not the evil Americans or the evil Jews or whatever. It's against his own people, particularly his own royal family. So from there he flees to Sudan, where he would stay for the next 5 to 6 years. He starts networking with many local insurgent groups there, particularly the EIJ, the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, which was a prominent terror group at that time. In 1995, he then helps them attempt to assassinate Hosni Mubarak, who was the president of Egypt then. They botched the assassination attempt, and when the Sudanese government came to find out that this guy called Bin Laden, who had been staying in their country, had been instrumental in planning it, they kicked him out of the country. So with his homeland Saudi Arabia and his new home Sudan both expelling him, he has no choice but to return to his old stomping grounds in Afghanistan. In the time that he had been gone, Afghanistan had now gone to the dogs. With the Soviets having retreated, the next decade had seen the country shredded in a civil war between all the warlords who had formerly fought the Soviets and a new group, an ultra-religious group called the Taliban. Bin Laden befriended the leader of this group called Mullah Omar, and they allowed him to stay in Afghanistan even though his clout had diminished a lot with all these expulsions. At that time, the the Taliban was successful in most of their fights against the Afghan warlords, but there was one guy they could never beat, a warlord known as Ahmad Shah Massoud. He was known to be a great strategist and a great warrior, and no matter what they did, the Taliban couldn't defeat him. Meanwhile, bin Laden was already planning his next big attack, which would be his legacy, the 9/11 attacks. But he also knew that the Taliban would kick him out if he did it, like the Saudis and the Sudanese before. So he came up with a brilliant plan. He sent two of his agents, suicide bombers, dressed as Belgian journalists, to go interview Shah Massoud. Massoud usually doesn't give interviews, but for some reason, on that day, he agreed, and the fate of the entire world changed because of that one decision. The two bombers blew themselves up along with Shah Massoud, which meant that the Taliban's only real enemy was dead and that Afghanistan was now under their control. The significance of this is that it happened on the 9th of September 2001. That's right, bin Laden had handed over Afghanistan on a silver platter to the Taliban on the 9th of September. And 2 days later, when those towers came crashing down, the Taliban had no choice but to support Osama and to refuse to hand him over to the Americans because he had just given them Afghanistan as a gift. If they had handed him over like they would have under any other circumstances, there might have never been a war on terror the way we know it today. And on the 11th of September, those towers came crashing down, and the rest, as they say, is history. If you like content like this, please don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you, take care, and I'll see you soon.